Let's talk about the day modern warfare changed forever. On March 1st, 2026, a conflict that seemed a world away suddenly showed up on our doorstep, or more accurately, inside the server racks that run our entire digital world.
So to really get what happened, we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the attack that changed the game, then rewind to see what caused it. We'll dig into Iran's shock and response, uncover the secret tech partner that made it all possible, and then figure out what this new age of warfare really means for all of us.
Okay, so let's jump right to the heart of it. The one moment that turned the abstract concept of the cloud into a very real, very physical battlefield.
It all kicked off with this image right here. News starts trickling in about a fire at some commercial building in the UAE. The cause? A drone strike. But at first, nobody could make sense of it. It just seemed random. Why hit this building in the middle of a war?
Well, because this wasn't just any building. It was a massive Amazon Web Services data center. You know, a physical piece of the global internet, built right in a geopolitical hotspot. And that's where we get to the core question. Why in the world would a military attack a commercial data center? The answer, as you're about to see, changes absolutely everything.
To understand why Iran fired a drone at a server farm, we have to go back just 48 hours earlier, to the massive military operation that lit the fuse for all of this.
And just look at how fast things went off the rails. You have a military buildup for a couple of months, then boom, February 28th, the US and Israel launched their strikes. The very next day, Iran hits back, but not at a carrier, not at an airbase, at AWS. And from there, it just explodes. A vital shipping lane gets shut down, and a massive cyber attack is unleashed. We're talking about a global crisis erupting in a matter of days.
The opening shot of the war was a campaign called Operation Epic Fury. And you got to understand, this wasn't some limited strike. It was a huge, coordinated air assault designed to do one thing: decapitate Iran's senior leadership and wipe out its military and nuclear capabilities.
The official line from Washington came from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. He sold it as a necessary, preemptive strike, a way to make sure, in his words, that Iran could never again blackmail the world.
So, you've got this overwhelming force coming at you. What do? Well, Iran didn't try to fight a conventional war it couldn't win. Instead, it responded with a digital counterpunch aimed right at the heart of the modern US war machine, the cloud.
And this is such a fundamental shift in thinking. For decades, war was about hitting carriers, air bases, command centers, the obvious military stuff. Iran's strategy was completely different. It was asymmetric. They decided to target the commercial and digital infrastructure that modern military power now depends on. They weren't just changing the targets, they were changing the entire battlefield.
And the attack itself was incredibly precise. They hit 2 different facilities in the UAE and another one in Bahrain. Now, by taking out 2 availability zones in the same region at the same time, they were able to defeat the cloud's built-in redundancy. See, this wasn't just about blowing up a building. It was a sophisticated, well-planned attack meant to cause a system-wide failure.
So here it is, the critical piece of the puzzle. Iran's justification was this. They claimed these specific data centers were hosting Anthropic's AI model Claude, and that the Pentagon was using this commercial AI to help pick targets for Operation Epic Fury. So in their view, those civilian server racks were part of the US military's kill chain.
Now you might be wondering, how in the world did Iran, while under this massive assault, manage to pull off such a high-tech, precise counterattack? Well, the answer lies with a very powerful and very quiet partner.
Meet Beidou 3. This is China's military-grade satellite navigation network. You can think of it as China's answer to GPS, but completely encrypted and controlled by their state. By switching its entire military over to Beidou, Iran basically sidestepped one of America's biggest electronic warfare advantages, the ability to jam or mess with GPS signals.
And the advantages this gave them were just huge. Its encrypted signal meant US jamming was basically useless. It even has a backup satellite texting service they could use for command and control. Its positioning was so good it gave their missiles sub-meter accuracy. And maybe the most important part? It has a 2-way link, which let them correct their drones' flight paths in real time, guiding them perfectly to their targets.
But it wasn't just navigation. China also gave Iran advanced radar systems specifically designed to track US stealth planes like the F-35. They provided real-time satellite intelligence on American naval movements. Oh, and they also supplied them with supersonic carrier-killer missiles. This was way more than just support. It was a top-to-bottom tech upgrade that let Iran go toe-to-toe with U.S. forces.
But this war wasn't only fought with missiles and drones. It spilled over into the digital and economic worlds, creating a new cyber-economic front that was just as brutal.
On March 11th, a pro-Iranian hacking group hit Stryker Corporation, a huge American medical tech company, and it was a textbook takedown. First, they got into the network. Then they got admin control. And then they unleashed a wiper malware. This is nasty stuff, designed just to destroy data, not steal it. In one move, they remotely erased over 200,000 devices around the world, crippling a key U.S. military supplier.
At the exact same time, Iran weaponized the global economy. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is a choke point for about a fifth of the world's oil. But notice how they did it. It was a selective blockade. If your ship was from a U.S. ally, you were turned away. But if you were headed to China, you could pass right through. It was a masterful piece of economic warfare.
So what's the big lesson from all of this? What did this conflict really change? Well, it pretty much wrote a whole new rulebook for modern war, kicking off an era of what you could call infrastructural insecurity.
And what's wild is that there's actually a legal precedent for this. It's called the Cuba submarine ruling, and it's from all the way back in 1923. Basically, it says that if a private company's infrastructure gets used for military purposes during a war, it becomes a legitimate military target, and the company doesn't get compensated if it's destroyed.
Now that old precedent is suddenly hyper-relevant because of modern data localization laws. You know, these are the rules that say companies have to store a country's data inside that country. It sounds sensible, right? But the unintended consequence was that it forced companies like Amazon to build these huge, concentrated data centers in politically unstable areas, essentially painting giant bullseyes on them.
I think this quote just nails it. The new oil, the most critical resource of our time, isn't just the fuel in tankers anymore. It's the computing power in server racks. And as of March 2026, both of them are considered fair game in a war.
Which really leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling question. We always think of the cloud as this abstract, invisible thing, but we just saw its physical locations get turned into a war zone. So if the very foundation of our digital lives is now a battlefield, is any of it truly safe?